So much for tuning into another great episode of We Can Fight Like Cats if we have to. We usually don't want to, but we always have to because we can't run away from our names, our appearance, our religious beliefs, nothing. We can't run away from any of those things. How's everybody today?
Okay, I guess. Sure. All right.
No, but it's true. Like it's like I've had so many people tell me, so where are you from? Like, and they just won't back off until, and even if I say I'm, South Asian, they say, no, no, you look like you're from the Middle East. Really. And it's like
You
they will
do.
not, and I'm like thinking, oh, and then they keep asking, are you sure? And I'm saying,
No, I'm not sure. I have no idea. I'd have to get a genetic DNA test, make sure I'm related to my mother and my father, ensure that their genetic background is the same and accurate.
no, and then
Because I could
one
be the milkman's kid. Who knows? Like, really, are you, like they're actually asking you if you're
no,
sure?
and one day I said, okay, yes, maybe like 1,000 years ago, my, ancestors came from the Middle East. And they were like, this woman practically started dancing. She was so excited. And she was bouncing all over the place and saying, I knew it. I knew it. I'm like, okay, why are you so excited about this?
She wanted to give herself a sticker.
She was just, no, she was, I don't know what she had in her head, but it was clearly,
Delusion.
no, they have this vision in their mind, right? Because thanks to the media, the great media for constantly saying Middle Eastern appearance and keep saying what that is. I think people have this in their head that they kind of look like, well, what we look like. And that's why. So, like, you're not like, it's the hair. I think it's the hair, which is
I
the
don't
gift,
know, man. I'm
right?
legitimately North African and Middle Eastern. I
Yeah.
don't think I look anything like either. I think I'm a hot mess, is really what I look like. I think I'm like unidentifiable. People look at me like does not compute, is usually what happens when they stare at me and they're like, you are from the planet Mars. Like, where are you from, Sally? And then they see the middle name Mohammed. And
Yeah.
that's just
And that's
like
when it's like, yes, yes.
ding, 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 ding. You want to talk about like extreme like assumptions.
Oh,
I mean, when 9/11 happened, I can't remember whether I was in grade 11 or grade 12, but like I was asked, like,
yeah.
were you involved in the attack? I was like, of course I was. I mean, the
Oh,
helicopter dropped me off at school right after we crashed into the twin towers, right? Because it's totally like, like I went to like airplane school with Muhammad Atta. Like we got this, man. We got this. Like we did it. Oh, I shouldn't even flash the peace sign. I should be flashing the, Al Qaeda sign.
oh, you're killing me.
Oh my gosh.
No, I was in university, so they weren't quite that backwards.
You were also in another country
No, it was
with a better education system, although not great either.
East Coast, but even there, like it was my boss, my professor, and my the people who worked with me in the lab. Like they were worried. They were like, okay, we're gonna walk you, to here because I didn't have a car at that time. They were like, we'll walk you to your dorm, and they were very aware that there were people in the society who were ignorant, even if they weren't. So,
And by
and
ignorant,
I
you
can't
mean
even imagine
psychopaths.
what it must have been like in New Brunswick at that time. Holy cow.
And by
Uh,
ignorant, you mean psychopaths, correct? Because
psychopath.
ignorant people don't necessarily assault other people.
Exactly.
Psychopaths assault other people
Oh,
for
but
no, I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Allon? That's a pretty extremist statement, I guess, by me, but
well, here's
I'm
some.
pretty sure it's psychopaths. But what do you think?
I see. I think people think psychopath. I think people have a general idea of what a psychopath what they think it is, right? So they think the Joker. They think
Yeah.
some crazed, deranged, super villain who and I think people assume that they can spot someone
Mhm.
who has suffered a psychotic break just by looking at them. But the fact of the matter is that individuals who perform, these domestic terrorist acts are very normal looking people. And unfortunately, because we as you know, as visible minorities have been programmed to think that anything white is okay and safe,
Yes.
we do not look at white individuals as being crazy or psychotic or being on the edge, right?
Or terrorists.
Or terrorists. So you see that timid white man, that timid white male, that timid white boy, and you think, oh, he's just timid, not realizing that this person, an individual, is, you know, maybe broken and concocting a scheme that's going to hurt a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, but and that's the thing, and so you know, because of that, you know, we as a society, and as you know, humans have been programmed by the white systemic system to feel that, you know, anyone of color who is a bit loud or a bit emotional or just has a strong personality, all of a sudden they are the crazy, deranged, psychotic individual you need to look out for, while the white male who's plotting and who is sneaky and manipulative, he's
would have
okay.
guns and
That's right. He's safe. He's totally safe. Why would I ever consider or even think, you know, that to assume that this individual, and that's the thing. And I think that if you know, society needs to retrain itself, and, you know, individuals need to retrain themselves, and parents need to teach their children, and people need to teach each other that, you know what, like, anybody is capable of anything, literally. And that this whole indoctrination of that, you know, white male is okay and everything else is not, is totally a falsehood. That's why you had Columbine. That's why you had the individual who killed the incels that go ahead and do these heinous acts, right? Even the Proud Boys. That's why they were able to walk down the street with no sort of recourse or repercussion, because people are trained to feel that, oh, white males are okay. It doesn't matter the situation. It doesn't matter how they look. It doesn't matter. We've been taught and trained that even the dirtiest, scruffiest, most insane white man is still smarter, faster, and able and allowed and entitled to more than anyone else. Than anyone else.
Yep. Right? And better hearted.
And better hearted. That's right.
So intentions are better.
That's right. We've been taught that through cartoons.
Do no harm.
That's right. Through movies, through books. We've been taught that time and time again.
No, even if you go and you complain about them and they're doing something visibly like very, very strange, you're not going to get anyone to act on it. Like, you know.
No, you're not, because with that comes, oh, you know, there's got to be a reason. I know we've all heard this. Everyone's heard this. There's always a reason, right? Where, again, a person of color or female or anyone else besides white males, you know, it's automatically, it's genetic, it's a predisposition. There is no backstory, there is no context, there is no excuse.
No.
Dress codes were created for white men. So school dress codes were created because of the problems of white men, which is they can't do any, like, I'm not saying they can't do any self-control, but the ones that won't control themselves.
No, you said it right.
So the women have to, like, cover up, and little girls have to cover up.
You said it right the first time.
White men are perverts.
You said it right the first time. There's fucking stories about white dudes back in, like, colonial times fucking getting off on the curvature of a wooden dining room table. Like, there's a problem here. Like, listen, not all white dudes are this way, and I understand that, and I get that. So no, don't hit me with the nonsense of me generalizing. However, in my experience, you know, dudes in general need to be checked, but white dudes get away with literally murder every day. And like Sally just said,
murder,
everything
rape,
that's right. Everything is catered to them.
Eating an earlobe.
That's right. Everything is catered to them. Dress codes, you know, corporate structures, everything, all rules and regulations are mandated and put in place because a white male decided that he, like Sally just said, did not want to take responsibility and did not want to have to control himself and learn something new and change his behaviors and change his. That's why white dudes are mad now, because finally, after all these years and generations, they're finally being held accountable
Are they
in a very
though?
here's a
We're pointing fingers at them, but are they
Right.
being held accountable?
what I'm saying, I think the process is starting.
But by only one group of people, and I want to bring that up because I think the focus has been on white men, and deservedly so, because they've had it for all these centuries. But right now, what has changed is that they are now accountable by white women, and
Yes,
only white
Me
women,
Too movement.
not women of color, not men of color, not anyone else. The only people now in the last 5 years who can now hold them accountable is
Yeah,
And
white.
again,
Me
it's because
Too-
of the statute of limitations.
But Me Too, but Me Too really. But let's look at Me Too. Okay, let's just go on that topic. You wanted to talk about topic I want to talk about. Let's talk about Bill Cosby. Let's just talk about this for a minute. Okay?
Let's do this. Yes, please.
So the Me Too movement for me was it was listen. It did what it did. That was fine. But here's my problem with the whole Me Too movement. You had Black women who were out there talking about Black violence against Black women specifically in the Black community, outside the Black community in general. Okay, the Me Too movement went parallel with the Mute R. Kelly movement.
Yep.
Okay, the press latched on to that like fucking flies on shit. Okay, because it was attacking a Black male who I'm going to say absolutely 100% deserved every iota of the shit that came down on him. Do not mistake what I'm saying is that I'm co-signing his bullshit, because I'm not. What I'm saying is that you had the Me Too movement and you had the Mute R. Kelly movement going side by side. The media latched onto that Mute R. Kelly shit fucking right away. Okay, the Me Too movement gains a bit of steam. You had a couple celebrities come out. You had Alyssa Milano. Shout out to her because she's a huge feminist advocate. She does her thing. But you had different celebrities coming out saying, "Listen, we have other dudes besides R. Kelly. R. Kelly's cute, but we've got other white dudes in Hollywood, in the music industry, that are doing just the same shit, if not worse, for a very long time." You look at what happened even with let's take Harvey and let's take Bill. Okay, Harvey was in house arrest forever. That motherfucker laid up in his house until the very last minute. And they went and fucking found Bill Cosby and locked up his ass. And again, in my opinion, rightfully fucking so. I can't stand Bill Cosby. Okay? The fact that he was released on a fucking technicality fucking kills me. That just shows you how shitty Crown prosecutors or like state or federally funded fucking attorneys are. Okay?
Money too,
or laws are.
Look at money and connections too. He has those.
He did, but he also can. But when he did his whole deposition, he admitted to what he did.
Yeah. Okay. Money and connections.
Right. So, but my thing is, the thing with the Me Too thing was that I felt the Me Too movement was only for white women.
Exactly.
I did not get the impression as a male. I did not get the impression from the outside looking in that this movement was about all women, all races of women. I felt really strong that it was only about white women of a certain economic stature.
Yes, exactly.
Who felt they had been wrong. Yeah. That to me was my problem with the whole Me Too thing, is that I did not feel that it encompassed every woman.
No, because there's been cases after that. After the Me Too movement, you've heard about Brock Turner, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was okay. Shocker. The woman was Asian in origin. They did not release that until. But had it been,
but he was such a good swimmer.
It would not have had that attitude that was given to this woman, because I do think it was absolutely a factor that she was Asian.
But listen, Natasha, let's think about this for a second. Let's think.
Oh no, you're gonna play devil.
The woman can get her vagina reconstructed after having pine cones shoved so far into it that it deformed, right? She can totally get that. But Brock's swimming career was on the line, right? And you can't ruin this poor swimming fish. You can't take him out of the sea. Like, it's just not fair, right?
But
we have to give him a slap on the wrist. By the way, for our listeners who don't see my sarcastic look on our YouTube channel right now and can't sense the disgusted sarcasm in my voice, I'm being totally sarcastic. when I say that we will gladly inconvenience the Asian woman to reconstruct her vagina so that Brock can maintain his swimming career as a student.
No, and I think that there was an absolute racist element to it. There was a socioeconomic element to it as well, because he was from a wealthy background. He was attending, what was it, Stanford? It was some kind of Ivy League place, right? And she was not. And that was also a factor, that she was seen as this poor Asian girl who was, you know, nobody compared to this guy. So you were absolutely right, Allon, and I'm going to give it back to you because I rudely interrupted you.
No.
Absolutely, the Me Too movement, right from the get-go, I saw so many women going, you know, sharing Me Too, Me Too, Me Too, and they were pretty much white women. And I noticed none of the women I knew, who I knew, like myself, had dealt with sexual harassment, you know, in our home countries, because there was no laws, there was no protection. The only way you could avoid it was to either veil yourself completely or be surrounded by male relatives. So I knew they had dealt with it. And I said, interested, how come you guys are not sharing this? And they're like, well, you know, what are we going to say? Nobody cares what happens to us.
Exactly.
And that is the reality, that nobody does care. You know, I mean, you'll have a woman with one incident, which will be minuscule compared to the dozens of incidents that, you know, we've gone through. And at the time, nobody cared, and nobody's going to care now. So why would we bother to, you know, sign on to a movement that was never meant to uplift us and is never going to give us any justice?
Well, that's why.
But
no, go ahead, Allon.
No. I mean, listen, you're all talking truth right now, and I just feel that there's something that's wrong when society goes ahead and wants to put one race's, you know, tragedy above another, and I really felt that was a missed opportunity. Because and you know what, I blame the media. You know, the media loves to jump on that bandwagon, and they made it's much like everything. It's like with missing children, right? When statistically it's been proven that if you are a white child, your face will get put on TV sooner and faster and more frequently than if you are a black or brown child who was missing. So
because you might have run away.
Right.
You're 5 years old, you'd run away from your family.
And this has been, you know, proven since the 80s.
Oh no,
you know?
They go beyond that. You're talking about stereotypes, right? With the Middle Easterners, not only do you get the terrorist stereotype, you also get they must have killed their child.
No, facts. Literally, you're not wrong. And that is part of the systemic thing that we're constantly dealing with. And this is leads back to what we were talking about earlier, which is the fact that, you know, these individuals who commit these domestic terrorist acts and who happen to be white, and that everyone acts shocked. Why are we acting shocked in 2021? Why are we still acting shocked about these things? Like, why are we acting shocked, and why aren't we giving people of color the same platform as, you know, white women or white who have been, you know, wronged by the system? Like, it's all the same. It's all the same thing. It's all the same pattern. And I mean, I got to tell you, it hit me yesterday. I was working this week, and I was working for a local utility here and doing a gas survey, so checking for gas leaks. And every time I'm out in general, I'm very cognizant of who I am. Now, that may be a societal thing, that may be me just being hyper aware, but I'm aware that I'm a 6'5" black man walking through a white neighborhood. Okay, I just am. I really
just said his height for those of you who missed it. He's 6'5",
which is not
exaggerating. He's 9 foot tall.
Right. Okay. So I'm aware of this, and I'm walking around, you know, Shediac Road area. I'm walking around, you know, parts of Moncton North and whatever. And this lady is walking down the street. This white lady with like 3 kids. And so and the job is me walking through these neighborhoods and then going to like houses and like checking their meters. So here I am, this black man, lurking in the neighborhood, looking at bad scene. And the company gave me no photo ID, which was even worse. Fortunately, no one's ever asked, but like, it's a problem for me. So anyway, I'm going along doing my job, and I'm wearing like bright orange, you know, like jumpsuit, the hard hat, You know, I'm looking as working related as I possibly can. And so this lady walks in. Listen, nice lady, nothing against the lady. I don't know the lady. It's her and her 3 white kids. And so anyway, no, the point I'm trying to make though is that I understand that this lady's walking through her white neighborhood, okay? And there's a black man in a large orange suit with a heart.
A large black man in a large orange suit.
And so here I am. And so I make it a point to like stay, and this is before COVID. I'm staying 6 feet away from you. I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't know. Listen, we were never breathing the same air.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I come from beside a house and she's walking by at the same time, which was like bad timing. I was like, oh, fuck. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I didn't make any eye contact. I'm like looking at my cell phone and the lady's like, oh, hi. And I'm like, hello. and so one of the little girls was like, oh, well, who is that? And so her mother, I assume, was like, oh, well, he's a worker guy and he's keeping us safe. And I was like, yeah,
oh, that's nice.
I'm like, I guess. I said, I guess so.
Nice.
That's nice.
And but that's true.
Better than calling the cops on you.
That's true. But then the little white girl who was like 6 wants to keep asking me questions. And I'm like, listen, little white, in my mind, I'm like, listen, little white girl, stop asking me questions. Stop asking me questions, all right? Like, I'm trying to run away here and get away as far as I can. Because if something goes sideways down the block, we never met, right? And she's like, oh, well, did you, like, put up this thing in the park that we were just at? And I'm like, no, that was not me, kid. Keep it moving. And she wants to keep asking me questions. And listen, it's a kid, and I get it. And I'm fine with that. But my point is that...
fear.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to point out, is that I was like, listen, child, you need to go because I'm not responsible for a fucking thing that happens to you from this point on, including like you not getting a snack later. You're not blaming it on the black man. I was never here. You never saw me. But I became at that moment, it kind of hit me that I was how obvious, I guess, that divide is, even in 2021. I still cannot freely live. Like there's not a time, even working and even, leisure. Like the wife and I went out on a random date this week. We got off work early and and as usual, I'm like the only black man on the patio in the restaurant, and everyone wants to look and everyone wants, and it's like, and my wife is great. She's wonderful, but it doesn't change the fact that like, I'm still very much hyper aware.
Yeah.
And I still have to buffer that, right? So I still have to buffer all of that unwanted attention and still be normal and act like everything's fun. Even at that work scenario, I still have to like maintain my composure. I can't go into a corner and like cry about this or like scream about it. I can't do that, right? I have to like quickly compose myself on a dime and fucking keep it moving, because at that moment when that child was talking to me, I realized that I can't talk to you, child. I can't. I literally can't, because if someone in the house behind me sees me talking to you, this could go one of two ways. And so now I have to like be abrupt and be like, get away from me, child, because even though you're a child and you're being inquisitive, and that's fine, and you don't know anything,
and you enjoy, and don't take this the wrong way, but you enjoy speaking with children. I have seen you with my children. I've seen you with children. You're really good with children. Like, you entertain them. You go to their level. You seem to genuinely enjoy their curiosity. So it's heartbreaking to me that you have to pull back for fear that you're going to be accused of something that you didn't do or can't do or won't do or aren't responsible for. Like,
but and thank you, but that's the reality of being a visible minority, whether you're male or female. If you're a brown woman talking to a little white, like, that's just something you have to worry about. You can't just live your life and be the person that you are. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't do that. Like, I'm walking through neighborhoods, I'm walking past parks, and I got to be aware that, oh shit, like, I'm in this very, very white neighborhood right now. And yeah, I may live in Riverview 5 minutes away, but like right at this moment, this is not a good look for me. I really should like hurry up and do what I need to do. And, and it's like, it's just ever so present. It's always there. And I think people really need to understand when we talk about in general in any of our podcasts about, you know, being a visible minority and doing our day-to-day and the stresses, that is a real fucking thing. It's a real thing when you have to like mute yourself and check yourself and be and like redirect to what you're doing. And like I've literally, like, there was a chick walking, and I do this for any woman, it doesn't matter whether she was white or not, but I like crossed the fucking street. I'm like, listen, again, the gas line was on that side, I crossed the street to the other side. I'm like, I am not hearing shit. I don't care. Like I and I've always been that way, but it's just one of those things where no, I am not white. I can't just walk past you. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Right? Like that's not it. Like even it's just not going to happen. Right? Like I just don't want to, you know, I have to live with the fact that I don't want to be randomly accused. And the thing that made it worse this week was I had watched a documentary. We had watched a documentary on Netflix last weekend about a bunch of wrongful convictions, and it's the science of the bite orthodont science of like criminology or whatever. Yeah. And so there's a documentary on Netflix about the Innocence Project in New York City. Yeah. It's called the Innocence Files. And basically they profile cases where they use this bite evidence to convict these individuals in Mississippi, I believe it was. That set me off, right? Set me off. Because it was like, they took 20, 30 years from these guys. And like, these men didn't do any of this shit. And they had this white so-called expert saying that, oh, they did this beyond a shadow of a doubt. I have no doubt in my mind, blah, 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 blah. Jurors in Mississippi talking about, well, this expert was entertaining and this guy wasn't. So I believe the guy who was entertaining, and took away 28, 30 years of his life because someone was like, yeah, he had to have done it. I mean, it's things like that are just like, you know what, like, I'm not trying to lose, you know, and I know people are like, oh, that's stupid. That's far-fetched. It's not far-fetched. It really isn't. This is not far-fetched at all.
We've been talking about the criminal justice system and statute of limitation, the pressure on victims and how it was designed by white men so many times in the last 48 hours. Yeah. When you think about it, like, if it's a state against, even in even in Canada, even in New Brunswick, if it's a province against, if the Queen against you, you can't afford to go up against the Queen. You can't afford to go against the what are they called? The Crown Prosecutor. You can't afford that. Yeah. You can't afford the money to get the experts that's going to discredit the expert that they can afford. And the fact is, like, whether you're the victim of the crime or whether you're falsely accused, you're still the victim, and you still have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that what happened to you is an injustice, or that you are being falsely accused and therefore are suffering an injustice. I mean, I get it. Like, we were walking down the street the other day. We were on a date and somebody made a comment on my hair. And like, I had to stop. Like, she commented, she was like, oh my gosh, your hair is amazing.
That's good.
And yeah, but not when you've had your hair set on fire multiple times in your life. And like, people, oh, your hair is so cool, I'm going to touch it and mess you up and beat you up. And like, yeah, it is nice, but I've gotten it so badly in the wrong context so many times that, you know, even though I was on a date with my husband, we were on a double date, I literally had to stop, process what was being said to me, talk to myself, be like, okay, is there anyone standing around me who can set my hair on fire, assault me, attack me? Am I gonna get in trouble for something I didn't do? Like, why is she commenting on my hair? I couldn't just say, thank you.
That's the
I mean, I got to the
understand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But there was the 9 million thoughts in the background of like, okay, why is she saying this? What could be happening? What could go wrong? Da, da, da. And same thing with you. You're talking to the kid and you're like, oh my gosh, she's adorable, but this is totally going to go south. I can't stay here. Da, 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 da. Like, it's the same It's the same calculated thought process. And like, even in other things, like I grew up in New Brunswick on and off, and being the quote unquote exotic girl. Dude, I couldn't enjoy dinner with my friends without some guy coming up to me. You look exotic. And you look like a cheesehead, but you don't hear me saying that. Like, go away. And it's the same thing. Like, I can't say anything because it could jeopardize my employability. It could I mean, today I really don't care, but back then I was like, oh, I'm gonna, I have to say, oh, thank you. Yeah, I am from far away, and I'm gonna pretend you're not stupid or intoxicated, and I'm gonna pretend to enjoy this conversation with you. And really, I want to either knock you out or run the hell out of here. But it's the opposite, because women don't tend to be made to look like criminals unless if we are accused of stealing, not of attacking, but we can be accused of stealing things from rich white women. But if we're dealing with men, we become the objects of their imagination. We're no longer even our own identity, and just the look on their face is just
No, it's
dear white men listening to this, do not walk up to a woman and say, you look exotic, because then we know your IQ is in the negatives, and we do not want to reproduce with that.
That is fetishization, though, and I think that, again, that's something that a lot of East Asian women, I think, deal with. Probably
all women.
Anyone. No, it's really
are not white.
It's really focused like heavily on them, and it's a little weird because they're sort of I don't know.
Kama Sutra.
No, not South Asian, East Asian women.
Yeah, but
I think that's the flavor of the month. Like, I think that's what you call it. But I think that's,
yeah, but we confuse all of that here. We don't have the education to separate which is which.
That's incredibly sad. But I'm just going to finish up with what you and Allon were talking about, which was I think that this thing about having to watch your every move. I never had to do that before living in New Brunswick, because I lived in 5 cities in the US, and never did I have to make sure I didn't upset anybody, irritate anybody. I have to feel like you have to have zero emotion on your face all the time, or somebody is going to think, oh, you're upset with them, or you are like trying to intimidate them or whatever.
You have to have a subtle smile, actually.
You have to, yeah, exactly.
Subtle smile.
You have to have either no expression or a subtle smile. You cannot be offended. You cannot be irritated. You cannot be scared, because even you being scared is seen as you have mental health problems.
Or an invitation.
Or an invitation, exactly. So it's just shocking. And again, this thing about children, this has bothered me so much over the years, that there is zero concern about children who are not white. Does not matter what. You're talking about seeing people in a weird situation. My kids would go to the play park with the nanny, who, by the way, I would send with them because people were nicer to her than they were to me. So I was thinking, because at that time I was wearing traditional clothes, because my husband insisted I wear traditional clothes. And of course, apparently I look very heavily Middle Eastern. So I figured, you know what, she's East Asian. They're more sort of, receptive to that. So I would let her take the kids. And one time, like, she told me there was a man. She said nobody else was there at the time they went, because my kids don't burn, right? The way white kids burn. So they would go later in the day sometimes when, it was hotter, so there would be less people. And she said one time we're there and she comes running back and she's out of breath, and the girls are like, I don't know, 5 and 3. And she said there was this very creepy man, and he came and he sat there and he took out a sandwich, and he said he's just staring at the kids the whole time. And I was like, she said, I was really like shaken. And I was like, I just took them and I brought them back. And of course, when I reported it, it was, well, we don't want to disturb this guy having a sandwich. Okay. And this is what I mean. So if it's your,
but if it were a brown man,
exactly,
he would be in the police station.
I was asked that
getting interrogated.
Description of the man, and I said, well, he was like, he had, I don't know, apparently he was, dirty blonde hair, looked in his 50s, I don't know, and the general description. And it was like, well, he's probably a guy just relaxing after a work shift and having a sandwich. So again, the POC factor heavily plays into everything across the board. If it had been flipped, the situation had been flipped, I am 100% sure that person would have been in custody within minutes.
Whether it's kids or adults, like they'll do that for anything though. Like we used to own a business in the mall, and an owner of a similar business came into our store, caused a scene, demanded to see my license, like I answer to her. If you're listening to this, you don't own me. You don't own any people of color. Anyway, demanded to see my license, like I have no right to operate my business and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm breaking some laws. Disrupted my business. Now, let's count. Trespassing, right? That's one crime.
Mm-hmm.
Disturbance, another crime. Harassment. Pretty sure those are 3 criminal offenses.
Mm-hmm.
In one short, stupid minute of a white woman losing her mind that a brown woman runs an equally successful business, and brown woman and brown man. But she picked specifically the fight with me.
Yeah.
And we did call the police, and the police came. He's like, well, this is just a fight,
Mm-hmm.
No, this is not just a fight.
No, it's not.
You go tell her, because it is your job to tell her that if she comes back here, I will have her arrested. If I had called him and said, ooh, there's a black girl, I think she might steal something, they would have talked to her.
Instantly.
Hands down. She would have been escorted out of the store.
I mean, I'm laughing, but this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Hell, if I would have just called and said there's a black woman with a look on her face.
Yeah.
With a look, it could be a smile, it could be crying profuse. It doesn't matter what is actually happening. I just say she's got a look on her face. They would have come and kicked her out. So why is it that this tall white woman who owns a business down the hall, it's
can't be
the same as mine,
can't be threatening? She just simply cannot be, because she has the right skin.
And I'm the crazy over exaggerating brown person.
You have the wrong hair.
And I had the melanin before my second child. Let's be fair. Second child stripped me of my melanin.
You get whiter as you get older. So
yeah,
it's true. Everybody does. So
Allon too, though. Allon, have you gotten lighter with age?
Hang in there.
I don't know. I know I tan in the summer. That's about it. I don't know if
I miss tanning. I burn.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't noticed me getting lighter as I get older. I don't know if it's gonna happen. I'm getting the white hairs though, which I'm looking forward to. The white goatee. I'm actually looking forward to that.
If any of our viewers can see, in the last 10 years, I would say a solid third of my hair is now white. It's been stressful. I mean, we've had like business attacks online, social media. People go apeshit because, the business owned by the brown people screwed up. Let's go fuck up their ratings. Total like online mobbing, attack our Google reviews, hit or miss sites, Ask Moncton, pay it forward page, because apparently warning people that we are brown and in business is, paying it forward. They don't, anyway, we've seen a lot over the years that was, and it's just like you're saying, like, you have to be aware. Like, we got in a fight with a white supremacist who was trying to rip us off.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up getting the slap in the face, right? By like, we got social mobbing. I had to avoid my business for 2 weeks. And this has happened twice in my career, where I was getting like threats of physical bodily harm, and like people were saying they'd show up to the store and beat me up or rip off my crotch or all sorts of other nonsense. And again, this all started because a white supremacist wanted to rip us off. And the other one was a white Karen, kind of like, what was his name? Central Park bird watching.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like it was a similar situation to that. This woman didn't like what I was saying to her, didn't like that I was right, and did the exact same thing. Didn't use the cops, but used the greatly ignorant Moncton and New Brunswick mob, to be frank. And I'm not saying all New Brunswickers or Monctonians are mobs or monsters or whatever. But when you don't educate an entire population in a province and you throw the dog a bone, the majority of people don't self-educate no matter how much internet they have.
That's true.
And those who resemble assemble. We surround ourselves with people that we share our communication and our discussion and our intellect and our opinions with. We don't necessarily go out with people who are different. And so when the different come, we need to protect each other from the difference. And so this ignorant culture actually becomes quite dangerous. I know I've been afraid for my life several times.
Same.
And I know as well that I've like borderline lost my sanity a few times, be it like the unfair injustice of situations. And in case you didn't record that, or dear social media world or internet world, yes, I just said I may be losing my mind or have lost my mind in the past. If either the police or some sort of insane asylum comes tomorrow and collects me, we will know that it is because this particular episode of We Can Fight Like Cats If We Have To, Saly confessed that on occasion she loses her mind, and there are consequences when a person of color admits illness, struggle, weakness, depression, incompetence, lack of education, lack of qualification. It's not enough for us to just try. And by the way, sorry, white people who use that excuse, we don't give a damn when you try, because we don't get to try. We have to bend ourselves backwards until we break. We have to accommodate your opinions that we are predisposed to be victims of on a regular basis. Allon can't talk to a kid who has, fascinating questions about his career, because he knows that if somebody sees a tall, 6'5", dark man speaking to a little white girl, and if something happens, like that kid randomly falls off their bike and scrapes their knee, all of a sudden, Allon probably vandalized her bicycle. And yeah, things do escalate that far. Things do go that fast. I know that because it's happened to me. I've seen it. I had a situation in the salon that went viral a few years ago. Carrie LeBlanc Casey brought her daughter, didn't disclose medication that the child was on. Child got a burn in her eyebrow from the wax, which can happen. And all of a sudden, a few days later, vicious business owner purposely rips off skin off of the face of child. Like, it really escalated to like unremorseful businesswoman and rips apart child's face. Child suddenly needs cosmetic surgery. Like, this story escalated. So what Allon is saying that he's afraid of, we're not delusional here. These things happen. These things actually happen. We are actually subjected to these exaggerated, violent unfounded, acts. Uneducated.
Yeah. This is violence. It is actual violence. You're perpetrating violence by inciting mobs on people. And, you mentioned all these things about how you can just be in a space and they'll be offended that you're there. You can actually be the victim in the space, and they will turn it around and make themselves the victim. Because I didn't do anything. I simply complained about a group of white people. And that infuriated people to such an extreme degree that it was because I complained and no follow-up was done. And I couldn't understand, why is nobody investigating? What's happening? What's happening? And I had no idea that they simply can choose not to do that. And then I was given this reason, you're hyper vigilant and you're too anxious and your husband doesn't believe you and we don't think that we have the time and resources to put into this. In other words,
Go suck an egg.
Exactly. But I didn't know all that because I was an immigrant and I had just emerged from my house the year before. So I wasn't aware of all these things. So I just thought, okay, so they genuinely don't think I'm credible. What should I do? So I hire a private investigator, and which is what you do, right? And I do that, and this private investigator grudgingly gives me the evidence that yes, indeed, there are people behaving in an inappropriate manner around you for no reason that we can see. So they haven't identified anyone, because they said we need to see the same person a certain number of times in order to do that. But we can indeed say that there is inappropriate behavior around you, because I told them my husband is threatening to use this to get custody of the children, because obviously he was aware of it and he was totally loving it. And so this PI gives me this report, and at this point I'm thinking, what do I do? Because you have small children, and then you have to think really seriously, what are you going to do? Are you going to use it or not? And these people then find out. I don't know how they found out, because they weren't supposed to find out, but they just went batshit crazy. They were so angry because it was like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be able to get away with terrorizing immigrants like this. We're supposed to be allowed to stalk them and their children, their 2-year-old and their 3-year-old children. We're allowed to do that because you know what? We can do that because we're white. And then they realize, okay, wait, this person doesn't realize her place, because you're supposed to know your place. And I think recently, Sally, it hasn't been that long where we were told to know our place. We're
oh, dude, yep. Yep. Like a regular basis thing.
Literally, but those words, like literally those words were used, that you don't know your place.
Yeah.
And it's I was really shocked. But anyways,
I was not.
It's that concept, right? That you don't know your place and you have to be shown your place. So you can be the victim, and that is turned around and used against you. You can't even be a victim. You're not even allowed to be a victim.
And I think that's the difference between being a woman on the receiving end of racism and being a man. Because a woman, we have to know our place.
Mm-hmm.
A man is just an agitator.
Right.
Like they go straight for the punishment with men. Women, they get like a warning.
No.
Men, they go straight for the punishment. Unless if the woman is outspoken, then they execute the woman.
No, I could see that a lot of these people were actually enjoying scaring the crap out of me. They were enjoying it. It was disgusting, because I was like, how can you enjoy this? What kind of person are you?
Well, that's not a surprise.
Because in their head, you are not an equal human being. That
you're not a human being.
That is the only.
Take out equal. You are not a human being.
You're not.
We are literally objects of their entertainment, pleasure, sadistic values. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. We are literally not human beings.
You're not.
Because and it's really hard.
You couldn't do it.
Like, I don't know, Allon, have you experienced something where like a whole mob of people just went like on you here in New Brunswick?
Wow. No, I don't think anyone's been that stupid.
You're also 6'5".
Yeah, but that doesn't stop idiots from trying stuff.
I mean, you've had the cops called on you.
Oh, I've had the cops call me many times. That's
right.
And that was a shock to me, because I've been in New York for a bit, and I mean, New York's got its issues, don't get me wrong. Like but not the nonsense that I experienced with the RCMP. I remember with my son's mother, I remember dealing with her drama and all that. And I remember a cop told me flat out at a courthouse, he was like, I don't care what your side of the story is. He's like, we don't care. Mm-hmm. So you're going to do A, B, C, and D, and that's what it's going to be. And that was a very massive slap in the face. I think I had only been here maybe 6 months. Wow. And I had that told to me by a white officer at the RCMP. I don't think I've ever had a group of people Because my personality is not one to back down. So I'm not one of these passive aggressive people. I, in my younger years, I enjoyed confrontation. I'm older now, so I'm a bit smarter, but I definitely will not shy away from it. So I've never had a group of people go off like that. I've had people try, and I mean, at the end of the day, and we say this often in this podcast, but as a visual minority, you really have to learn the confidence to stand up for yourself, because systemically you're told not to, right? And it's beat down. And the thing is beat down. Your confidence is beat down in you and taken from you.
Yeah.
It's just the moment you enter like daycare.
Yes.
And I've seen daycares and grade schools and middle schools and high schools, just with my own son, attempt to break him down.
Yes.
And my son is me. So my son is, going to say what he's going to say. And I remember telling my son when he was very young, you deal with the kid shit. When it crosses the line to adults, you let me handle that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't let the adults fucking push you around.
Yeah.
You come home and you tell me, and then I'll deal with the adults. You don't have to worry about that. So you say what you have to say, stand up for yourself. They got a problem, they can come see me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the relationship that Zach and I had. That was the deal. I think he was like 6 or 7 years old. And I remember that. And ever since that day, that's what it's been. It's been, Dad, this happened at school. And I said, blah, blah, blah. And they said, we're going to call your parents and call your mom. And he was like, no, I live with my dad. You can talk to my dad. And they were like, well, you don't want us to call your dad. And my Zach's like, well, go ahead and call him. I told you, but don't come to me when he curses you out. I remember the last time something happened to him, he was in high school or whatever, and they had tried some shit. And they were like, yeah, we're going to tell your parents. And he was like, okay. And we're going to call. He's like, yeah, go ahead. But I'm warning you, it's not going to go the way you think. And so, yeah, but people and immigrants and anyone of color here in America need to understand, you got to be cognizant of that. Because they will try to break you down. They will try to break your children down, to take that confidence away, to take away their voice, to take away their courage. Because they expect you just to be subservient and to just break and to just be like, okay, yes, and go into the shadows and to be that model minority kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
That model kid of color who, does everything for everybody and wants to blend in so bad that when you do have a voice and when you do have a backbone and when you do stand up, they absolutely have a problem with that. So yeah, I've never had anyone try. I've never had a group of people. I've had individuals try and test me, and I don't care where we are, church, library, I will light you up as soon as you breathe. Like, I just don't care. I don't care whether I just don't care. That's me, right? I get into a tunnel vision and I just don't care. But again, on that same note, like I said, we said before, we tell people just to find that courage, because I know it's hard, but they try to break it down. They do. They try at every turn to break you down. Case in point, quick story, because I know we're approaching our hour limit. My son got a job, and he was there for literally 3 days and got fired. He comes to me, he's like, Dad, I got fired. I'm like, okay, well, what happened? And he has his friend on the phone who got him the job. And so his friend's like, yeah, the supervisor was on some shit. He put Zach in the hardest part of the warehouse, which is unheard of. And, purposely was like trying to fuck him over and find a reason to let him go. And Zach was like, well, I talked to the supervisor and said, listen, is this me or am I actually doing something wrong? And the supervisor's response was, well, it's partially you and partially because I just want to see if you can actually handle the job. And so here is my son, not even 20 years old, in 2021, in Moncton, New Brunswick, experiencing racism in the workplace. Mm-hmm. In the first 72 hours, because some fucking half-ass white guy doesn't like the fact that this brown kid is working at a job, and if he were to stay there, could possibly become part of the union.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, if he were to stay there, build a life for himself if he wanted to. And, you know, that to me is, and it was hard to hear that because he's 18. So I can't jump in and beat dude. I can't do that. So, you know, he's got to learn how to, I can't. My wife wants me to come home at night, so I can't. There's certain things I can't do anymore. But yeah, it's hard. And I just want people to know that, you know, this province, this geographical area of this country as a whole, will try and test you on a regular fucking basis. Just when you think you've dealt with everything in every scenario, there's always a new scenario that pops up. There's always someone who's going to come out of their face and say something sideways. There's always going to be somebody trying to fuck with you. If something happens to your kids, and, you know, luckily, you know, with Zach, you know, it's he realizes it and he gets it, you know, and he doesn't let it affect, you know, he says what he has to say, he vents and he moves on. You know, but there are a lot of individuals who experience that, who are much older than Zach, who move here for the first time and experience that. And, you know, it's hurtful. You know, you think you're making progress, you think you're moving forward, and now you got this racist supervisor here who wants to feel some type of way and get in his bag because of how you look and who you are. Another story. I'm sorry, I'm so with the stories tonight.
No, it's absolutely true. And I mean, like, I know exactly how you feel about the kid being in the workplace, because my daughter turned, 15 last summer, and a lot of her classmates were getting jobs, right? And they were excited about it, and she wanted to get a job. And I was thinking, oh, I don't know, because I can't protect her there.
That's right.
Right. And I know how much racism there is in the community, and how much, in addition to the racism, because you're, visibly not white, we're on top of that, we're Muslim. And on top of it, her parents are immigrants. And I don't have a workplace that will shelter me the way, her father's would. And
workplaces don't necessarily shelter the parents.
But if they need you, they do, right? Like, and he's a doctor, so they need doctors, because their own doctors are like getting out of here. So it depends on how much they need you. But I don't have that. So I had seen that. So I was like, I don't know, because even my girls growing up, and they're girls, and yet they did not get that white girl protection factor, because as they turned from baby looking girls to girls, they said to me, the only place we feel safe in this town is in school. That's it. We do not. And I would ask them, why don't you feel safe in, other places? And they said, because wherever we go, whether it's an activity, or whether it's the park, or whether it's the mall, or there is some creepy white people hanging around staring at us. And we don't know what we're supposed to do with that, because what are we supposed to do about it?
It's
and
true.
They don't. And then I asked them, like I said, has anyone come up to you, said anything? They said, that's just it. They don't say anything. They just stand there and stare at us. And they make us feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's true.
And my daughter was like 14 or 15. She did not want to go to stores without me. And I was saying, no, you need to be able to go buy your stuff, because, at some point I'm thinking I have to go back to work. And she said, no, there are people who stand around and stare at me, and they make me feel really uncomfortable. And why are they doing that? Yeah. So this is not kids, who have, need to be shoplifting. These are kids who are, well-to-do. So this has nothing to do with whether you look like you need to be stealing or anything. It's simply, you're the wrong ethnicity.
It's the truth. Even as an adult, I still get stared at. I drive around for work. I get stared at.
I get escorted at the grocery store. I don't even give a shit anymore.
No, but this is okay. See, it's one thing when you're an adult, and I got used to it over the years. I'm used to people staring and giving me weird looks and all that stuff. But I know how to conduct myself, right? If you're doing it to a child, that child is only used to two things, like other than this public atmosphere, they're used to their home, which is your safe space, and then they're used to their school, where I have to say, the teachers by and large treat them with, respect. And there'll always be some jerk. Like there is one person who my younger kid complained to me about, and she told me, I'm telling you this guy makes me uncomfortable, not in the way that like he is into young girls, but she says, I get the feeling he's racist and he doesn't like me, but I don't want you to say anything. And I said, okay, this guy works in your school and you think he's racist and he glares at you, but you don't want me to say anything? And she said, yes, because if you do, they're going to blame me. They're going to say, I must have, been rude to him or something. She said, I don't want you complaining about it. He's not going to do anything. He just glares at me every time I go by. So there is absolutely this issue that, that happens with children of color. But this is what she said to me. She said, this is my older kid now. And she said, I don't want, to go places alone because I am so uncomfortable when people are staring at me all the time. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do because I feel like, they don't want me there. And what am I supposed to do? Just leave? And yes, that is exactly what they want you to do. They want you to leave. It is a calculated act, and and now they're doing it to children, which is disgusting. And you are horrible, filthy people. I have to say, if you are standing around intimidating children of color, you are a disgusting, vile individual, and you should be locked in your basement. Just going to say.
Some of them it's to intimidate, but some of them it's because they want to
dominate.
And I have had that opposite experience, right? Like I just shared a monologue a couple of days ago about one of my experiences where I was dominated specifically by an adult, a nun at a music conservatory. And Allon, you said that, like, if they tell you to call your dad, I want to go back to that statement because that is an incredibly important statement, because that is an incredibly important conversation to have with your child. You had it with him at the age of 6 or 7.
Yeah.
My abuse started at the age of 7, did not end until the age of 12, where I did have to call my father and where I did bring my father over. And I still remember that conversation when I picked up the phone and I called my dad and I said, Dad, Sir Rosemi wants to speak to you. And he said, about what? And I said, you'll see. And he kept insisting, well, about what? You can talk to me. And because we never had that conversation before that moment, I didn't feel the safety to tell him what was going on for 5 years.
Wow.
Not even on that phone conversation. My response to my father was, I'll be here. You come. You will see what she wants to tell you. And I didn't know. I simply did not know what my father's reaction would be because, we come from a world where we never want to disappoint our parents. And if we as parents fail to have that discussion with our children can't identify that safe space anymore. And so for 5 years, I did not have a safe space to discuss or to go to my dad and be like, I need an adult to deal with a psychopath adult who is beating the shit out of me for an entire hour, completely destroying my dignity, my self-esteem, my self-respect, my self-worth, my cognitive development, my causing actual injuries. Like, I didn't have that. And so for any of our listeners who are parents, like, Allon and Natasha are having really important conversations with their children. And I fortunately am now a mother and I have those really important conversations with my child. My children are 2 and are 5. I also have a 21-year-old and I have a few more stepkids, and we have these really hard discussions because at the end of the day, I think my experience has taught me that if the adult does not tell the child that it is a safe place to go to the adult, to tell that it is the adult's responsibility to deal with the adults and not yours at all, your little minusculeness, then you can take a situation that could have lasted a week and prolong it for 5 years and utterly destroy the development of a human being. And that's a whole other ball game. Like, yeah, if you think that they could attack your children, don't think they could attack your children. Know that they are attacking your children. Assume that they are attacking your children, and make sure that you have this conversation with your children and let them know, like, we are your safe space. You can come here, you can come in these 4 walls, and you can tell me, there is an adult I do not trust. There is an adult I do not like, and I need your support, and I need your help, and I need you to keep me safe. And these are really important things. Like, I'm so grateful that both of you brought that up, because so many immigrants come here and they think they have to be the good Canadian.
No.
And a lot of us come from very patriarchal, traditional cultures where, you know, we have to meet the approval of an adult at all times, because it is assumed that the adult has the best interest of the child in mind. Even if it isn't the case, the majority in the motherland, if you are of a traditional culture, the adults want the best interest of the child, even if it is in a slightly manipulative way, but they don't necessarily want the destruction of the child.
Oh, no.
So, dear parents of color, dear parents of a different religious background, dear visible minorities, dear immigrants, dear Indigenous people, I mean, the Indigenous people already know, they're going for your kids.
I know.
They're going straight for the balls. Like,
That is
straight
your
for where it hurts, and that is your kids.
That
And
is
your
also-
kids can't protect themselves.
For sure, but also I want to throw in there, parents, white parents of children of color.
that too.
So if you have adopted children, or whatever, or you have grandkids or whatever,
Amen. Yeah.
please, I am so sick of seeing, white individuals with grandkids or children of color, biracial children, who don't know and don't want to be aware and cognizant of what those children are experiencing and going through. They are not white children.
Yes.
Their life experience is different. I understand you think that children are children and you want to raise them colorblind or whatever other shit you want to talk, but the reality is that their experience is different from yours.
Will be.
Okay, so please, I implore, white parents of, children of color, biracial children, grandparents, please educate yourself and be aware and learn the signs of what we're talking about happening in daycare, in school, in high school. Know these things, be aware of these things, and like Sally is saying, be that safe space and let your children, your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews, whoever they may be, know that you understand and that you are there, and that if there is an issue, they can come to you. Don't play this game of, everything is everything. That's not the reality. That's not the reality.
Dear white people, that's not an acceptable thing to teach your white children either.
Right. But I mean, it's just the thing, like I see, Asian children or Black children, and, they're adopted or whatever the case may be, or, they're biracial.
Biracial children of single moms and single dads.
It's like, fuck, man. Like, I really, I worry for those children, because I know that I had issues with my son's grandmother, and I had to, say my words to her and be like, listen, like, no, you're going to refer to him in a certain way. You are not going to do A, B, C, and D. And, this is what it is. Like, those hard conversations have to happen. But you've got to be aware of what those children are going through. And you have to accept the fact that their reality is different than yours. And so if they do come to you, if they say something's happening in school, at daycare, with other children, you got to understand they're brown. So what they're telling you is their experience, and you can't downplay that experience or write off that experience or say, oh no, you're just making that up. Oh no, you're just being cranky. Oh no, you're mistaken. That's not what so-and-so meant.
Are you sure that's what happened?
Oh yeah.
Yes, they're damn sure.
Yes, exactly. You've got to understand that their experience is different than yours. And you have to be educated and aware. And more importantly, listen to that child and stand up for that child, despite what the fuck you think about it. If that child's like, oh, little Timmy said something to me that was fucking off color and off base, fuck what your personal opinion is. You need to handle that. don't write that off and say, well, little Timmy is just this, or little Timmy is that, or I know Timmy's mother. We don't give a shit. The child doesn't give a shit. That child experienced something that was racially motivated, that had cruel intent, and you need to address that as such. And that's very important to me. And I just want, I just, you know, I implore, you know, people to really understand that and just realize that the little brown kid is cute, and I get that. And I know you're happy to have a caramel kid, but that comes with a lot of great power, comes great responsibility. And so, you know, if you want to be that person and that parent, that grandparent, that aunt and uncle, you got to go all in. And so that's not teaching your kids racism, because I've heard those arguments too. Oh, you're teaching your child to be racist. Oh, blah. Listen, no, like the reality is racism exists. Right. There are individuals out there who are conducting themselves in an improper manner. And a lot of those people are in positions of power. They are teachers. They are, you know, TAs. They are daycare providers. They are doctors. They're
premiers.
That's right. They're premiers. That's right. Absolutely. Fuck kids. They're everywhere. Exactly. So
in every field.
Right. So you've got to be aware of that. And you know, it's just it's one of those things that, you know, I think about constantly. Like you know, my son wasn't raised by me. You know, I hate to think about that, because, you know, he would not be prepared in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, I just want people to understand that, you know, it's not a game. The kids are not, you know, toys and trophies. Oh, I got a little Asian kid, aren't I popular? Oh, I got a little African kid, aren't I trendy? No. That's a lot of responsibility, much more than you realize. Besides this child being a child, and you raise them to be, you know, a decent member of society, they are experiencing life differently than you, and you need to educate and support them and understand what they're going through and learn empathy for what they're going through and stand up for them. And like Sally said, don't just brush it off as you don't understand or a misunderstanding or you don't get it, or that's not the place. That's not needed, right? So anyway, we veered very much off our original topic.
We just went way off completely, but it's so important.
It is, and it's a reoccurring theme. It's a reoccurring theme, right? So
because if you are not ready or prepared, or in my case, I had no idea racism was so prevalent still. Like I had this, you know, wrong concept thanks to TV that it was over and done with, and that was just garbage.
Yeah.
And they should, like, literally, we should be doing class action lawsuits on these TV shows, which are lies and propaganda, because that is not real. That is not real. That you have these happy multicultural groups everywhere. I'm sorry, that's not it. There's freaking ghettoization in every single space. You know, it's just it's awful, and it's embarrassing. Honestly, if I was a white person here, I would be embarrassed, chronically embarrassed, that everybody around is just so blatant about it. But they're just out to lunch and don't get it. And you have to keep explaining it to them and keep, no, this is happening. And our children should not have that burden of having to convince them. So we have to take that burden and, you know, educate people as much as we can, because children should not have this burden of constantly being told their pain isn't real, it doesn't matter, or they made it up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'm gonna go and introduce as well a page that was created recently on Facebook called NB Parents of BIPOC. Yeah. It was created by us as well as a few other members that brought on the idea. It was especially discussed after a discussion with our guests, Paul and Jessica Paul Sambu and Jessica. They were on the show, and we had that discussion of, you know, the adopted Black child in the classroom. And at that moment, I kind of started discussing with some of the single moms that I knew that had children of color. And the more we got into discussion, the more I really realized, you know, there is no source for these children.
No source.
To meet someone who has their experience. Yeah. And so we've created this safe space, not only for parents to ask questions, and it's promised no judgment. You may be corrected from time to time, just so that you are more aware of, you know, proper terminology or proper things that you want to use around your child. But there is no shaming in this group. It is there to support you. It is there to help you. It is there to help you grow as a parent and grow as an actual multicultural, multi-ethnic, diverse parent and key holder of the future, essentially, by being the parent of these children. It's an opportunity for you to pair up your child potentially with an older mentor who may be of a similar background as theirs and will likely share many of their experiences. So it's a great place to network as well. You know, anything down to like, how do I manage hair? How do I manage skin? Because some of these things are different. And when you don't have those resources there, it's really difficult. So we have created, in fact, the NB Parents of BIPOC Facebook group. It is a very welcoming group of parents who are all concerned about the well-being of all of our children. And that's the way it should be. It should be concerned about the well-being of all of our children. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you need to reach out to us with any questions, any concern, you know how to find us on social media. On Facebook, we have a Facebook page. We can fight like cats if we have to podcast. And you can also reach us via email, WCFLCNB, which is We Can Fight Like Cats NB, WCFLCNB@gmail.com. You can reach out to us anytime, any concerns, anything you want us to go rant about. We're here to talk to you. We're here to, you know, to chat with you. And if you're listening and you feel like, hey, we're pointing the finger at you, the truth is maybe we are. Maybe we are pointing the finger at you. Maybe you're not doing enough. I'm going to go one step further and say, dear white people, we don't want your apologies.
Thank you.
I don't want my friends coming up to me and saying, you know, Sally, I'm so ashamed of being a white person. I'm so sorry. That is not our goal.
No.
That is not our goal. We do not want you to feel shame in your identity. We do not want you to feel responsible for what your ancestors did. What we do want you to feel is anger. I want you to feel angry that you have a fellow human being who has to prove their identity as a human being, and they have to work 10 times harder to prove their worth as a human being as some of your white counterparts. And you need to be angry with those white people who refuse to realize that they are systematically part of the problem, because apologizing, we don't want an apology.
No.
We can't change the past.
No.
There's only one direction we're going to go, and that's forward. And if we keep trying to apologize, then we're just dwelling on what's happened in the past. And we're doing absolutely nothing for the future generations, for the future immigrants, and for the future victims of these crimes, these heinous, inhumane crimes against humanity, because that is what they are. And then with the system that just, you know, really puts the burden of proof financially and actually on the victims.
Emotionally,
mentally, everything. You have a responsibility to contribute to the changing of, you know, the laws, the changing of legislature, the changing of the rights, the changing of, if you want your children to really be in a world where they don't have to see color anymore, you have to make them see the color and the inequities and the inequalities that exist. And you cannot deny them. You cannot pretend that they do not exist, because pretending that they do not exist is exactly what abusers are counting on. Mm-hmm. Closing points, Allon, Natasha, anything you want to add?
No, I think you said it all.
I think you said it all too.
Thank you all so much for tuning into another, you know, interesting. I don't think we were planning on going in this direction tonight, but you know what? We always end up starting with something and end up going somewhere else. And these are all conversations that really need to be had. And you know what? I encourage you, dear white people, to have conversations even amongst yourselves, with each other. Talk about that awkward, you know, discussion that nobody wants to talk about. The new black guy who's working with you, the new veiled woman who's working with you, that new girl in the classroom who's walking in from Asia, from India, from, you know, anywhere at all. Like, you need to talk about them.
I think you forgot to mention terrorist countries.
Yeah, I mean, please name the Mohammeds in your classroom and talk about them, okay? I happen to be one of them. But like, seriously, like, talk about them. This silent awkwardness look at what's happening right now with all these children they're unburying. The discussions were there, but white complacent people were refusing to have the conversation.
Exactly.
Indigenous people kept having the conversation, but white complacent people refused to have the
ignored.
conversation.
Just ignore.
And now the horrific truth comes out, and it's the same thing. You know, we've even had guests mention this. Temi mentioned this on an episode. Nikki mentioned this in the episode. Paul mentioned this in the episode. This is a common denominator for all people of color, Black, Indigenous, religious minorities.
Mhm.
Stop pretending that you don't see us. Allon said at the beginning of the day, he's not invisible, but stop pretending like we are. You have to make us even more apparent, and you have to talk about us to make sure that we are part of the conversation. We are included in the conversation. With that, we wish you all a wonderful night. Be kind to each other, support one another, but most of all, because the other two really don't matter if you don't stand up for each other. Have a great day, everybody.
Good night.